Hello and welcome to the Ultimate Match Starter Kit for Unity presentation video. More about the starter kit here at this website. Before we begin, I recommend that you switch your video display to full screen 720p so that when we switch over to the Unity interface, the text and other display elements will be clear. So how to use this project? Start with a 2D project. Then add the Ultimate Match-3 Starter Kit folder to your project's assets, which we have already done here. So we have a 2D project, and the folder is added to the assets. Then you open either the grid or the hex scene in the scenes folder. So let's head over to the scenes folder, and then let's choose the grid. And then finally, you click on the corresponding game object and customize. So in this case, we open the grid scene, so let's open the grid game object, and we can customize over here at the right hand side. If I hit play, the corresponding game should appear. We can customize the board component. First, we can customize the match length. It defaults to 3, meaning 3 in a row makes a match. If, for instance, we want that to be 4 in a row, we just change that to 4. Then we get 4 in a row matches. You can also customize the sprites used for your blocks, and the number of sprites that you use corresponds to the number of colors which your board will use. So in our default grid, we use 5 sprites. I can change that to 4 so that I only have 4 colors in my board. Then I can also change the sprites used for the special blocks. So whenever I make one more than the match length, I get this type of block. And the sprite for that is here. And then if I match 2 rows with 1 block, the sprite for that is here. And then finally, if I match 5 in a row, the block for that is here. So you can change that to whatever you want. Then the hint sprite is over here. So this is the sprite that is used to indicate a hint. Like this one. If I don't want hints, I can just simply set the sprite to none, so that the hint won't appear anymore. Then there are these space sprites. These are the sprites which correspond to the spaces at the beneath the blocks. So there are 4 of those. For the unmatched, the default the matched, whenever you make a match. And then whenever you have an empty block, so it's this one. And whenever you have, no, I meant empty space. And whenever you have a blocked space, like here. You can set any of the sprites to none if they are not used or if you do not want to display them. For example, with the empty or the blocked spaces. Let me show an example here. By default, I use this sprite for the empty spaces. If I want that to be just transparent, I just set this to none. Then whenever you import sprites, you take note of the sprite import settings. The sprite import settings are here. In particular, you'll want to pay attention to the pixels to units number. You can change that to whatever is appropriate for your assets. Then consider using the true color format instead of compressed. So in this case, it usually defaults to compressed. You might want to set it to true color so that your sprite assets retain their quality. Then there's reset on match all. Let me demonstrate what that means. In general, by default, whenever you match all the spaces, what happens is the game resets. Like here. If the matched spaces are not important to you, then you can consider changing the reset on match all setting to false. What that does is it ignores the background. So even if you match everything, the game doesn't reset. If this is something that's important to you, then consider setting the matched space right to none. Since the background the matched spaces are ignored, then what you can do is you can set this to none, so that matching spaces will have no visual effect on the gameplay. Then there is reset on no more moves. By default, what happens is if you run out of moves, the board resets, but the spaces do not. If you want a complete reset, what you can do is you can check this, reset and no more moves. Then whenever you run out of moves, even the background, even the matched spaces are cleared. The fall index is simply a number which corresponds to the direction which the blocks will fall. It defaults to 0, usually down. If you can change, and consecutive, even odd numbers are opposites of each other. So by default, that is 0. So the blocks fall down by default. The corresponding odd number is 1. So if I change that to 1, the blocks fall up. You can change that to 2. Then the blocks fall from the left. And the corresponding odd number is 3. So if I change that to 3, the blocks fall from the right. Then you can impose, or rather, before the game begins, you can already determine what kinds of blocks will appear on the board using overrides. You can override the block type, the color, and the location of the block. For example, over here, I have 8 overrides. Let's look for something simpler. Over here, I have 5 overrides. I'm looking for, rather, I want 5 normal blocks, which all have the same color 0, located at 40, 41, 43, 44, and 52, which is this one. Now I can change that to, say, if I want a max block, I'm going to get the max block at the very beginning. If I want to change the color, say 1, I get those. Now it can happen that whenever we override, we configure the board in a way such that it's already solved, so the game cannot begin, because you always have to begin with an unsolved board. If that happens, the game will not be able to start. Now, to prevent that, the game sets a cap to the number of times it will follow your overrides. That corresponds to the max reset attempts, which is over here. It defaults to 100. In general, this is something that you shouldn't really touch. It's an advanced feature. But if you want the game to always follow your overrides, you can just set that to 0. And then there are these, rather, don't create specials. This just says that if you don't want, let's say, if you don't want long blocks to appear, then I can say so here. And if I match 4 in a row, nothing happens. And then the prefabs are here. You don't really need to do anything with those. Then you can change the width and height of the board. Here we have an 8 by 7 board, which is set here. If I want that to be, for example, 4x3. You get a 4x3 board. Now, whenever we adjust the dimensions of the board, you will also want to change the camera's position and orthographic size, which we will do now. Also, please make sure that you test the portrait orientation for your game. Because, for example, if you change it to portrait, the game might get clipped. So you will need to adjust the orthographic size so that the board will fit. Then you can also specify which spaces you want empty, matched, or blocked. So here we have these spaces set to empty, which we have indicated here. These blocked spaces are indicated here. And then you can have a block that is a space that is matched by default. That is set here. And the spawn distance, it simply refers to how far away from the board the pieces are generated. Let me just change the orthographic size for you to better understand what I mean. If I change my spawn distance to, say, a large number along y, what that does is the pieces are generated farther away along the y direction. And everything that is not y, we set that using x. So if I want it to be closer, I simply change the x spawn distance. Thank you. If you want to learn more, please visit this website. Thank you.